Welcome to Abnormal, the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. Today's guest is a Welsh international, a British and Irish Lion, and one of the most dangerous wingers of the modern era. We are, of course, talking about Alex Cuthbert, rugby player, ex-rugby player. In this episode, we're going to be talking Lions, tour memories, the pressure of elite sport, elite rugby in particular, mindset shifts, and what it really takes to thrive on and now off the pitch. Alex Cuthbert, welcome to Abnormal, my friend.
How's it going, mate? Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to catching up with you and obviously having a good chat over the pod. So yeah, it should be a good one.
Yeah, looking forward to it, mate. Thank you for agreeing to come on. Disclaimer, we were part of the same rugby team back in the day. Now, I want to say this very loosely. I didn't say we played together on purpose because with two very different levels. We were, of course, part of Exeter Chiefs together. You were playing. I was very much not playing. But we did do a stint in rehab together. Yes. I remember that.
We did quite a bit of a stint, I think. We were a bit unlucky, I think, for a number of months being in that cauldron that was the Exeter Chiefs bunker, I guess, or underneath the stand, wasn't it? Which was
with no windows.
Yes.
And sweating in summer.
Coming in at dark, leaving at dark. That was some bleak times, I will say.
Some bleak times, but it was always good to have a good group in the rehab group, wasn't it? Always good to be in a good squad in the trenches for those morning coffees and morning swims.
Definitely. They were tough, mate, weren't they? I think, what were the swims? 6 a.m. swims, and then didn't get treated till 9. And then, it was, we needed a good group there. And I think yourself, me, who else? I think Ollie Atkins was in there for a bit, wasn't he? The lads.
Yeah, James Freeman was probably
James
knocking
Freeman
around.
was there for a bit. Yeah, we had a good group, and he needed that, didn't he? And I think that probably brought us closer in terms of when we did have I let our hair down, and for sure. So yeah, it was great crap.
Sure. I mean, we'll definitely get into some of the injuries and stuff later on and setbacks. But I would be remiss. Now, it's not a rugby podcast, obviously. Abnormal is definitely not a rugby podcast. You are the second rugby player we've had on. We've had Jack Noel previously. But I would be remiss to not mention the British and Irish Lions are currently touring in Australia. And for the listeners that don't know, we're, of course, talking about rugby, sport of rugby, and the British and Irish Lions. For anyone based in any of the 4 countries, which are England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, the British and Irish Lions happens once every 4 years. It is the best of the best, the creme de la creme, and it's a squad that gets picked every 4 years, and they tour either Australia, South Africa, or New Zealand. Now, you, Cuthy, were on the tour 12 years ago now to Australia, and that was the last time that the Lions won a tour.
Yes. Yeah. Right? Bang on. Yeah. 12 years ago. Wow.
And 12 years, and famously, you were selected in, was it the second test?
First test in Brisbane.
First test, sorry.
Stadium,
and famously scored one of probably the most historic tries. Now, there have been plenty, but that try in particular was pretty up there, pretty special. So when you see the Lions back in Australia and you see that red jersey and, this is basically the tour that you did 12 years ago, what's your emotions when you see what's going on right now?
Obviously, you can take the mick a bit, obviously feeling old 12 years ago, but probably a sense of fulfillment, really. Like, I haven't really thought about it, about like being a British Lion, like, wow. But once you see it, when the team selection was, a couple of months ago now, and those lads playing out there now, and in every conversation now, wherever I go, since I guess the Lions have been spoke about, is literally, how was it? What's it like? What those lads go? Literally every conversation, whether I go to a coffee shop, they know instantly straight away. They can just, I guess, familiarize myself there, which is quite, it's quite a weird feeling, but. Mate, it was an unbelievable tour, and to win it as well, to be involved. I was only, I think, professional rugby player 2 years prior to that as well. So, to get it so early on in my career, you look at the likes of Henry Pollock, who's a real young guy on tour, 20-year-old. I sort of know, I guess, what he's sort of going through, and that's what people really want to sort of digress into. Then they want to know, what's he feeling? What's it like to be a 20-year-old on tour? And I can tell you, it's probably one of the best feelings you'll ever have until you have children, literally. It's especially when you put so much of your energy, your time into being a professional rugby player, playing for a professional team, then your country, and then you're selected. I was cap 777, and you think the Lions have been going since 1888. Put that into perspective. That's absolutely mad, really, isn't it? You think how many millions of players that have played rugby union, and that's my number. 777, and I'll never lose that. So yeah, it's been pretty cool to, especially reminiscing. You do a lot of lunches and dinners and invite to a lot of events, and you go back and it all sort of comes back to memory wise, all the stories and how good that trip was. It really, really was one of my probably best 6 weeks of my life, really.
Yeah, I remember, like, I'm sure now, especially every time the Lions come round, I'm sure, like, the dinner invites and the talking invites get sent through the mail, and,
Yeah.
like, you're few and far between. You get plenty. But so how old were you then, Cuthy, on that trip to
I was
Oz?
20. I was just 23, so I wasn't the youngest on
Wow.
tour.
Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
wasn't the youngest on tour, but I was. I think it was myself, Stuart Hogg, and maybe one other. I was. Yeah, I was one of the younger ones. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was
And
strange.
and And to reach then, to reach the pinnacle that early in your career, was there, now that we're 12
Yes.
years on and you've had a great career since then, was there any part of it that you think got lost on you at that young age, or do you think that you were able to take it in for what it is at that time? Because you have some great players that go their whole
Um,
careers, play a hundred test caps for their country, and don't ever make it in the Lions. Do you think you were able to fully absorb what you achieved at such a young age?
I don't. I think if I'm being really honest, I don't think I was able to fully. I think I appreciated like how big a deal it was being for the Lions, but when you're that age, and I'll put it in perspective. I went. I had my first professional game for Cardiff in 2011. Played for Wales at the end of 2011 after the 2011 World Cup. Was in the 2012 Grand Slam. We won the Grand Slam, and then we won the 2013 Championship, and then that was the Lions. So within, what was that, 2 years, I'd won the Grand Slam Championship and a Lions series. It
Jesus,
was for me. I was just like, wow, I'm just riding this wave.
this
Like,
is
yeah,
easy.
not. I'd never say it was easy, but I was like, wow, this is absolutely mental. Really, that I've done what I've done in such a short period of time. That is what I probably didn't realize or put that in perspective how big or appreciate really how hard it is actually to do that, especially obviously playing for the number of years for Wales, and we came second quite a few times. How hard it is to win a Six Nations, let alone get into a Lions squad. I think when you're that age, I was just enjoying it. I just absolutely loved every minute of it. Whether we training sessions, the greatest thing about the Lions is that it's not just about the rugby, it's what you do off field. Like we were going to like kids schools, kids camps. You buy into literally the Aussie lifestyle, Aussie like way of life. And that was what I really loved. Just meeting people outside and just completely opening myself up to, um, I guess just things that I would never probably appreciate as much being back home. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, put it into being honest, I probably didn't quite appreciate probably how big a deal it was at the time. But now looking back, like we said earlier on, like I look at those lads now down in Australia, and I think, wow, like how good, how cool must that have been? And I'm like, well, hang on a minute, I've been there and done it. It was pretty
I did
cool.
it.
So yeah,
And then for a lot of listeners, then they'll probably know, or they'll want to know maybe more about the playing side and what it's like to play for the Lions. Um, you mentioned it there, going to the schools and all that sort of stuff. Can you talk a bit about the off field stuff that happens on a Lions tour that really makes it so
yeah.
special?
So it's actually mad how much staff are involved in the Lions. I think there was over 110 staff involved in that tour. So,
Jeez.
from the PR, the marketing, social to uh, obviously the coaches, to the security, to everything. And then and they plan everything real meticulously. So every day, 2 to 3 players will have an event on every. They would have to go to events every day, whether it's coaching kids at a school, or they go to a fundraising event, or I think one of the funniest ones, we went to this local surf school on Bondi Beach, and it was me,
Sick.
Toby Falatau, and Tipperick, or a couple of the Welsh lads, Rory Best and Conor Murray. I've never surfed in my life. I remember going down and thinking, wow, this is a pretty good spot to go surfing, first time ever. The swell was massive. They gave me the biggest board
My
ever.
God.
And no joke, within about 20 minutes, I was probably down near Manly, I felt like. It was so. And I'll be honest, I've never surfed since. Just those sort of things. The lads were just, it was the funniest thing ever, because they all thought I'd like literally died, because I was gone. But those sort of events, but you buy into it, and people just love it. And the amount of fans that were out there, it was unbelievable. Like, there must have been about 100,000 Lions fans, and wherever you went, there was queues. People just want to have conversations with you, coffee, everything. It really was an amazing trip.
And do you think that's the same now, 12 years later? Because I know things have changed since then. Like you mentioned, you had social media team and everything, and that now seems to be a way bigger deal. Like Lions are doing a big YouTube series, but also Australian rugby was it seemed to be in a far stronger place when you toured 12 years ago than it is now. So from what you've seen of the current tour, how similar is it to what your experience was 12 years
I
ago?
think it's like the social media for the year, the tour I went to, 2013. I guess it was Twitter and Instagram was literally very, very small. It wasn't. It wasn't there wasn't any like Instagram stories. It was just a post and that was it. You couldn't even do like reels or anything. It was literally just a picture.
Mm.
And then Twitter was obviously very big saying it. So what you see now, you're seeing way more behind the scenes than you would have back then. Maybe, probably, I'm actually quite glad that we, in a way, because I don't think there was obviously probably a lot more going on the tour I went on than there is this tour, because obviously a lot of lads probably stay in the hotel, maybe a little bit more social, not, put it blunt, we used to go out quite a bit for social life, and you get away with it, whereas now you just wouldn't, would you? There'd be someone that would take a picture of you, or so forth. But I love how social media is used in a good way with the Lions, in terms of showing people what it actually means to those lads to play, what they're doing behind the scenes, and it gives you a real good sense of like you can sort of imagine yourself in that squad, in the team environment, what they're up to, and eventually you want to see how intense it is, and how much pressure is involved. I think there's definitely more pressure on those Lions boys now than there were probably when I was on tour, to a certain extent. Especially as you said there, Australia, I think, was second or third in the world when we played 2013. They made a World Cup final, a year or two after. So they were a top side, whereas this year, you could probably say the narrative is they're not a great side, are they? But to win down there, either way, is tough. And the pressure will build this week. First test week, the big boys will be very on edge, especially training today. Won't know the team till tomorrow, so there'll be boys trying to gun for each other. That's just the nature, the competitive nature that those lads are. They're all the best players in their positions for their country. So for the first time this week, some of those lads are going to be dropped. So that's a very good indication of your squad, is how those boys react. And obviously there's still a midweek game before the second test. So I had a good chat with Sir Ian McGeechan. If any of your followers will know, he toured the Lions twice, coached the Lions like 4 times. One of the most prestigious coaches, people doing. The first thing
Yeah.
he said was he didn't care about his first team. The only team he cared about was the midweek team, and how they reacted to, like you said, being dropped for the first time. They set the environment, they set the stand, I guess, for the test week, going in to the test week. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how, some certain conversations happen this week, because it can all be fun and games, all these midweek games. Everyone gets a chance But when you're named in that 23 and then the other 10, 15 boys aren't, it'd be interesting. That's the big determination of how they react and like how obviously they go into training and help that test team, because all in all they have to be all on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, so give us an insight then, Cuther. You've lived both. You've been picked. You've been
Yes.
dropped. Talk us through what that was like for
Yeah,
you.
probably one of the toughest days. I didn't really. I'll be honest. I didn't take it that well. I played first test, felt like I had a pretty good game. Second test, I got dropped to the bench, and that was probably the first time in my career. Only a young career, but still, you've got to be able to take it on the chin. I guess it probably took me a day or two to really, take that. And then you realize it's not just about you, is it? It's about the team. And at the end of the day, we all wanted the same goal, was to win a test series. And if that was me being dropped to the bench for Tommy Bowe to get some minutes, and then the third test then was quite hard because I got dropped completely because Jamie Roberts, who was a centre but injured or tore, came back fit. So what they needed was a cover on the bench to cover centre. So then I had to fall from the 23 for I think Manitou Alangi at the time. So that was a completely new experience. I had the highs of scoring a winning try in the first test to suddenly then not being involved. And I knew how good it was being involved and winning that first test. It was hard to take, being dropped and not being involved in that environment and in the change room, and evidently being probably the last test to win out in Sydney. That was a real tough one for me to take. Probably took me a while to get over that in terms of, not, yeah, like I didn't take it well, I guess, to an extent, Pete, in terms of it took me a good summer to sort of get over it. And then you hear things like Warren Gatland said, I think in one of the dinners, I think one of his biggest mistakes was probably dropping me. He said he should have just kept me in, I was playing well, I was on form. So, that then even added to the, I guess, how pissed off I was at the time.
From that experience, like that's as we've mentioned, it is the peak of rugby for anyone really in the Northern Hemisphere. So I can't think of more of a high to a low. As in you've scored, as you said, you've scored the winner, and it was a crazy winner in that first test, and then to not be involved in the third. What has that taught you then? What lessons has that given you at such a young age that you've been able to use not just throughout rugby, but has stayed with you post rugby into your new career as well, if anything?
It probably toughened me up a bit, Pete, in terms of mentally, when something doesn't, because I guess at that time, everything I'd done, Pete, was just, I was just flying, there wasn't one, I can't imagine, I don't think I had an injury. I didn't have a setback or anything. So for me, I think I was, maybe, what's the word? It's not like a spoilt brat or anything like that, but it's more of like, I was like, why always me? I guess that's what I felt like. And I think as I've got older, definitely as I've got older, I've just realised, nothing ever goes to plan. And I guess the best way to react to it is probably just, like for me, I used to just work even harder. Like, with the amount of injuries I had at Exeter, and I could have easily just gone, oh, I don't know if I can do this. But you always just find a way of like, because I always just grab hold of that glimmer of, I used to just love being involved in the change room, before a game, and that feel of
Yeah.
you're about to go out and play a rugby game. That feeling is, that'll never go away, and that was probably what kept me going. But as I got older, I guess I probably learned that it doesn't always go to plan, but it's probably how you react afterwards. Like I wasn't great when I was younger and reacting in the right way, and I was probably quite selfish. But as I got older, I realised, when we're playing a team sport, we all want the same thing, but sometimes whatever's right for you is better for the team in a way. Do you know what I mean? It's quite hard to explain in terms of it took me a while to understand that, I guess, because naturally we're always going to be quite selfish, I think, aren't we? And I think you do as a professional sportsman, sometimes, the sacrifices that you have to take to get to that standard. And I guess that was something I really learned as I got older in terms of, if something doesn't quite go right, it's about reacting in the right way. That's better, not just for yourself, but for the team as well.
Yeah. I think with you, it's like, right, everything was going right at such a young age, and you reached the top so quick, and then the first hiccup of your career, or first, let's say, speed bump of you getting dropped. It wasn't an injury; it was you getting dropped, but that happened on the biggest possible stage. So, for someone, and I'll use myself as an example, and this is what I would say when I was in rehab with some of the guys, and they would really struggle mentally, like other guys who had played international rugby, and then you'd be sidelined for a year, and some people would have like identity crisis, because you're whoever, the rugby player, the international rugby player. Whereas I always thought that I was at somewhat of an advantage because I never tasted the top. So for me, it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is my setback, but it's so under the radar. No one knows that I'm injured. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Whereas for you, getting dropped and any setback you've had, the first setback you had in your career was being dropped from a Lions team where everyone in rugby is watching and you're super
sure.
young. So, I mean, that's pretty like, that's pretty dropped in the deep end, kind of stuff. So you've got to learn your lesson pretty quickly there. And then doesn't matter how you react because people are going to see you. The media's going to cover it. Your teammates are going to know. Your families are going to know. The coaches are going to know because it's the most covered sporting event in the rugby
Yeah,
world.
literally that was. And then when you say it like that, the first time I had my setback was in the highest, I guess, accolade that you can have in rugby. It puts it into perspective, really. Like for me to be, that's what I think. By the time I got back and I realised, and I sat down with my family and stuff, and obviously they were all gutted, but they were like, my dad, but like you said, my dad literally said that. Like, mate, you played the first test, you were involved in the second. Okay, you didn't play in the third, but you didn't really get dropped, did you? To a certain extent, you were just, you just weren't involved in that.
You're a
Yeah.
casualty. You're a casualty of a
Yeah, and I
selection that
guess
they
once I
felt like
got
they had
over
to do.
that, in terms of when you're like, hang on a minute, it's not, it's different. I think being dropped from a club because you can, you can find ways of obviously getting back in. But when you're the Lions, I just felt like that was probably my chance, maybe, and I didn't take it well, I'll be honest, but I got over it, and I guess that's probably what I learned a lot. I probably learned more from that than I did anything else in my whole career, to be honest.
Is there any was there any fallout or negative vibes towards any coaches or players from that point
Yeah,
from
there
from
was a
your
little bit,
standpoint?
yeah, because I obviously had Rob Howley. Warren didn't drop me. It was Rob came over and was like, "All right, yeah, you're not involved this week." And then I was like, "What the?" Gave it all that, and there was a little bit of resentment. But I spoke to a lot of the players after. Actually, spoke to a number of the players, and they were like, "Mate, you could head up. You were asked to do a job, and you've done that. And then this is just the way the coaches want to go down for the next two tests." And like I said, at the time, it felt awful. But don't get me wrong, it didn't stop me from enjoying Australia and the rest of the tour, and obviously wanting to win a Test series because I don't think the Lions had won a Test series for quite a number of years before
Mm.
that. I'm still part of that, and like you said, that first Test is going to be remembered for a long time. Myself and George, we had a really good relationship with Lee Halfpenny, obviously, in that game, and it was that I'll take an awful lot from that first game, definitely.
If you could go back then and knowing what you know now and tell yourself, if you could get yourself in a room after you'd just been
Yeah,
dropped, what would you tell yourself?
just fucking man up, mate. No,
It's not the
just
end of the
literally,
world.
no, just literally, yeah, it's not the end of the world. Take it on the chin. Go out there and prove, why you should be starting, and help the I guess the test team for the weekend as much as possible. Show that I guess excitement of still being involved of the Lions, but you know we always say that, don't we, with lads in training? Just go around there and train like Tarzan, isn't it? Sort of run around, belt and everything. But it was more just probably, I think Gats just wanted to see how I reacted, and I probably didn't react in the right way. And I think we definitely had conversations later on in the line around that with Wales. So yeah, it was a massive learning curve for me. But it still doesn't take away the fact that I still had one of the best 6 weeks of my life. Like you said, it was sort of, I guess, bittersweet at the time. But, 23-year-old, everything was all new to me at that point.
When you've done that at the age of 23, and you said you've probably had six of the best weeks of your life and played probably some of the best rugby of your life as well. You're 23 years old, 24. What's it like after then? What's it like after a Lions tour? And, you might be out of that golden period because it's impossible to stay in that period. You can't keep rising. You've literally reached the top. What's that sort of hangover like post Lions tour, and how did you kind of find that? Were you kind of chasing that high and that buzz?
Yeah, I was, to be honest. I had a good time off. I remember having quite a bit of time off. I actually came into pre-season in one of the best shapes I've ever been in. I remember I trained like hell, and I wanted to literally fly into the next season, and I used that confidence of being a British Lion. Like, oh, there's British Irish Lion. I used that an awful lot. Uh, I may have probably tipped it over the edge too much in terms of I started picking up quite a few little injuries and niggles then, um, which I used to always really struggle. I only sort of realised this when I look back at my career. I used to always really struggle from pre-season to Christmas in terms of getting consistent games, playing well. It wasn't until after Christmas and obviously the New Year, and I don't know why that was, but I always used to time it where I'd always used to come really. I guess Six Nations was probably where I felt like I was probably sort of playing my best rugby. But this year, I remember 2014 trying to. I know it would have been the end of 2013 actually. I remember coming into really good shape. We ended up playing Toulon in, I think, the Champions Cup, and I broke my foot, and then I was out for a really long period of time. Well, I actually tried to come back for the autumn, which was the last game of Australia, um, and I came back, and I didn't really play. I didn't play well, and I had 3 weeks, 4 weeks break in between breaking my foot, and that set me back quite a bit then because I think I ended up like re-breaking it going into the new year, and I really struggled that whole season. Then after the Lions tour, like going into it thinking I was an absolute, I felt so confident. But then when you start picking up injuries and then you come back and you hope to play some way, but you play another way, that starts getting on you. And then I guess I just had a little bit of a spiral of confidence maybe and trying too hard as well. Um, which I guess that really affected that whole season really. And obviously that was a season I was hoping to come into, full of confidence after the back of being a British Irish Lion. So, and then you can get yourself into a hole very, very quickly there, where you try and cover everything in training, so you're out there doing absolutely everything. You try too hard in games, you're trying to be here, there, and everywhere, not worried about what you do well in the game. Now, when I played rugby, the last probably 5, 6 years since I was at Exeter, I kept it so simple. I wish I told myself that back then. I'd be like, right, what? Kick, chase, defense, run hard. Three things, do that really well. Consistency. I probably tried to cover absolutely everything when I was a bit younger. And
Mm.
that would be one thing I'd tell myself, I think now, would be like, right, hang on a minute, what do you do well? Just do them really, really well. Whatever comes after that is extra. So yeah, that would be one advice definitely I wish I gave myself.
When you're in those holes, and I think you put it really well, like you can just spiral, and it's sport is high level sport is such a confidence game. Like you can tell when a player is playing with confidence. It doesn't matter what sport, right? And you could say that about a lot of things in life as well, not just sport. Um, so from your experience then, Cuthie, how do you get out of those holes when you know you're in a spiral and you know you're out of sync and you're at a low point? How do you shake yourself and wake yourself up to say, right, something needs to change here. I need to get back to doing what I'm best at? Yeah.
There was a couple of games, I hadn't scored for like 5-6 games for Wales, which at the time was a massive thing because, as a nation, Wales, we were winning championships. If we weren't winning, we were coming second or third, or losing on points difference. That was just like the norm. So when someone wasn't quite, I guess, hitting the heights, people were after you, and I guess I was a little bit of a confidence player, I reckon, at the time as well. And social media, I was all over social media, and that really affected me. So that didn't help me for probably 2, maybe 3 seasons.
In what way, sorry, did the
I
social
think
media
just
stuff
probably
affect
just
you? Because I wanted to get
yeah,
into
probably
that.
just like
I wanted to
just
talk
the
about that.
comments, and then you get past players talking, saying, "Oh, maybe he needs to step away from Wales," and then I'm trying too hard. Then I'm trying absolutely everything just to try and have a solid game, and then it takes away what I was good at, because then I'd be not afraid of trying things in games, but I wasn't playing like I'd see the game like I beforehand. It completely changes your mindset going in. And I had that for a number of years. And then I think my last year, I think at Cardiff 2018, this is where I think Matt Sherratt was very good, who's coach of Cardiff now, obviously just coached Wales. I got on quite well with him, and I saw a couple of people off the field as well, in terms of just trying to change maybe my mannerisms on the field as well, because I was such a competitive bloke. I hated losing. Like, you would see it all over my face. I lose a game of drafts and I'm swinging for my brother or something. You know what I mean? It was one of them. So in games, if it wasn't going my way, I wasn't the best, I guess. Wouldn't have the, but
Body
yeah,
language,
my body
or
language.
yeah, you could
Yes,
tell. You could
you
tell.
could tell,
Right.
and I worked really hard at that in terms of in season.
Like what?
Just little cues, like say I try and offload or something, and it doesn't go to plan. I'd be like, right, one clap, bang, and that would be my cue to go to the next thing, and I'd be very quickly forget about it, because I used to always just think about things all the time. Like I could play a game and come home, lie in bed, and I would probably know. I could literally pinpoint every single, I guess, point of the game where I was involved, but it'd all be negative though, not positive, or not what I did well. It was always, whether that was just I guess, what the Welsh media was a little bit like, that they always seem to pick up on a lot of negatives. And I guess when you're in that environment, that's what you look to go for, look to think first. Because it wasn't until I went to Exeter, I know it's a bit off topic here, but I'm just saying, when we went to Exeter, when I joined Exeter, I had a team review with Ali Heifer, and I think we played Newcastle away. And he goes, "Oh, how did you think you went?" And I was like, "Oh no, a couple of mistakes here. Could have done better there." And he's like, "What? Shut up." He goes, "Look at what you did well here. You did a great carry. It was all just positive." Like, he didn't care about, the rubbish offload there, or a drop pass there, or didn't quite catch the high ball. It was irrelevant. It was all positive. And that changed my mindset straight away when I went to Exeter. And I think from then on, that was probably why I actually felt like I probably played my best rugby from then to the end of my career, weirdly, because everything was just, I moved on easy from mistakes. Like, I made less mistakes, really. I worried about what I did well, and I did it well. And it worked. I got my way back into the Wales team. And yeah, that was a real eye opener, I think. And for me, it probably leaving Wales was probably the biggest thing to get out of the spiral and hole that I was in.
It's crazy that even of someone of your ability and someone that's played at the very highest level, sometimes it still takes for someone external to give you a trigger or point something out, or just make you think about things a little bit differently to change everything. And it's like you are one of you at the time, you're one of the world's best rugby players, and if it takes that for you to like change your way of looking at yourself and playing, it just goes to show the importance of mental coaching as well, in my opinion. Like and how that can be a big part of professional sports now, and not even sports, right? Just life. So for yourself then, Cuthy, like you say, you're a confidence player. What about post rugby then? Like, have any of those kind of triggers and the way you kind of see your output now, has that changed
Yeah,
things?
like I said, I think it wasn't until I left Wales, went to Exeter, and I really found my, I guess mojo back. Is it mojo? Yeah, in terms of like love of the game, and my confidence was, I felt like even high, even with all the injuries, that I had at Exeter, and I missed, I missed two finals and now through injury, and that can easily set me back. But I was just in such a mental state where I was just like, I know exactly what I can do. I knew I was the best winger when I was fit and firing. And I guess that was what got me through a lot of those injuries. And then going into off rugby now, my confidence is the high as it is because I know exactly what I've achieved. I know exactly what I can give to obviously business world in terms of what we're in, the media world. I've been there and done it. I've experienced every single high and low aspect within the game. So when I do my commentary or punditry, like, I'm stood there knowing exactly not what to say in terms of, but in situations, I know how those boys feel, when they're dropped or they're on the high of obviously winning the trophy. So I guess my opinion or my, I guess what was the experience of being around that, I feel like I can 100% offer, and I know it's in a way, it wouldn't be too far off, I guess, the sort of career that I had.
Yeah, I love ex-player pundits. I think they're the best because you immediately have a level of respect for them, and their insights are always so different and on
Yeah,
point.
it's
And I want to get into it. Like, I want to get into like what you're doing now, Kathy, as well. In a bit, I've got a couple things I would love to sort of ask you. Uh, Just one last touch then on the actual pro sports and rugby side before we go post rugby and stuff. I want to actually talk about the moment. So, like, the pressure cooker when you're actually playing these games. Because a lot of people, myself included, I mean, I was a professional rugby player, but I still don't know how I would react if I was playing in front of 80,000 people because I never got the chance to do it. So,
yeah,
talk
I know
us,
what I mean.
talk, just give us, I know you must have had this question like a million times, but what does that feel like when you're playing in front of 80, 90,000 people? How do you react? What's going through your head when you're about to step out onto that field?
I think when I was playing at my best and I was at full going, I was fit and I knew I had a good training week underneath. There wasn't that much going through my head in terms of all I was worried about was my roles, how I play. You take away all that, I guess, external noise. What are the crowd going to think if I do this, or what's my, I know there's so many people watching. That does come into your mind. Don't get me wrong. I've run out Principality Stadium, 74,000 people, and I'm thinking, wow, don't fuck up.
Really?
And that you should never ever be going into a game thinking like that. Don't get me wrong, that's only ever happened like once or twice where I've been really like, Jesus, I'm going to find this probably tough. But you just find a way, don't you? But when I was playing at my best and I was absolutely full of confidence, I used to absolutely love it. You just run out, and it was just like it was such a buzz that I don't think I'll ever get back. That's what I miss finishing now. It is those days where you just run out and you just know every single person there is on your side near enough. Um, it's hard to explain the feeling. It's like, so I'll give you an example of how much that really pushed me. We played England in 2013. The game when we won 30 points to 3. I actually pulled my hamstring after about 35 minutes, like grade 2, and told the
Fuck.
physio,
Anyone that doesn't know, grade two is a serious
told my
tech.
physio, and I was like, right, just strap it, don't say anything. And went out half time. And then if you watch the second half, I scored 2 tries in the corner. And that is the buzz that you get from a crowd and the occasion, how big the game was, what it was worth that I stayed on that field and scored 2 tries with a grade 2 hamstring tear. Literally. I couldn't walk after the
Jeez.
game. I was absolutely in agony.
Could you feel it in that second
Not
half?
not really. It wasn't after
Mental.
until the adrenaline. When we were in the changing room with the trophy doing pictures, I was like, oh my God, my hammy is killing. And then obviously got scanned, grade 2 scan. I didn't play for 8 weeks. And then my first game back was for the
Jeez.
Lions against the Barbars in Hong Kong. So,
Oh my
yeah, if
God.
you're talking about what it offers you in a positive way, is something like that. But in a negative way, it can be really, really tough.
When you're jeez, that's mental. I can't wrap my head around that. Um, those moments then, for better or worse, because you mentioned when you're on form, you're feeling unstoppable. When you're not on form, you're going in saying, I hope I don't fuck this up. Either way, being able to deal with those moments, is there anything that can scare you now, post rugby, career wise, that you don't feel like you can go through?
No, no, nothing now. Like even in things, I guess as a player, I do a lot of like Q&A speeches in front of people and rooms, and I've done a couple of speeches in front of like 900 people, like that. In theory, that's doesn't sound that daunting, does it? But you've done a few people. It can get to some people, can't it?
When you see 900 people in a room, it's a lot of
It's
people.
you can get things like that. But obviously, I've got I just I love that I've experienced so much. I just throw myself into anything now, with no, I guess, no questions asked. Really, I'm intrigued to sort of just learn or know everything, whatever I do. I guess that's 100% probably, going through my career where I had such a high, such a low, and then probably even higher. My greatest achievement for me was probably when I left Exeter, came back to the Ospreys, and I got called up to the Wales team to play Fiji with my boy, who was like 2 at the time. That was probably my best ever achievement, because I actually I appreciated the call up into the Welsh squad. It was like my first cap. I hadn't played for 4 years because I wasn't able to, because of there's a cap rule in Wales where if you leave Wales, you had to have played 60 games. I think I was on like 49 or something. So I wasn't able to play for Wales for 4 years. And I knew that when I left Exeter. But when I came back, I never thought I'd ever play for Wales again, because I think I was like 32, 33 at the time. And that call when Wayne Pivac rang me was probably the best feeling one of the best feelings I've ever had. Top 3, weirdly. Do you know what I mean? Someone that's had 40, 50
Yeah.
caps already, done what I'd done at Exeter and with Wales, but to go back and play in the autumn game against Fiji was probably one of the best. Yeah, definitely one of the best feelings I've ever had. Whether that's just because my boy was watching, my family and stuff, I don't know. But or maybe I just really appreciated it more because I was older and I knew I probably lost it. So yeah, it's mad what I guess professional sport can offer and obviously give you. Yeah,
It sounds like it came with a bit of perspective. You'd seen so many low points in your career, from injuries, niggles, selection, mainly injuries, to be honest. I mean, from the moment I knew you anyway, like there was always something. There was always something you were dealing with, and when you were on, you were on. And so it sounds like I remember seeing the Instagram post. I remember seeing that you were back in the Wales squad and being like, "Fuck yeah, that's sick." Because I only knew you for a limited period of time,
yeah,
right? But I saw how hard you worked and how frustrated someone like yourself could get when you know what you can do. Even for us, right, as your
yeah,
teammates, we're like, "Fuck, he's injured again." Like, damn it.
yeah.
So seeing that and seeing the hard work pay off, it's yeah, it must have been pretty special, especially having your boy being able to see it as
Yeah,
well.
that was the coolest thing. I think that's the thing, but I don't think people that's why I think if in professional sport is you see like that the rehab side. You're in such a dark hole, aren't you, as a group? I don't think people realize how hard it is that period of time, knowing that you probably should be playing or involved, but you're injured and you're out 6 months, 9 months, or a year. That there are some tough times, aren't they? Because you automatically
Yeah,
think the
yeah,
coaches hate you because you're injured. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. You're inside your own head the whole
You're just
time.
battling yourself, aren't you? Really. So
Yeah,
I find that's probably what made me probably a bit stronger, just being in that rehab um, rehab program at Exeter Chiefs when we were in, what was it, 6 till 5, Monday to Sunday, wasn't it?
It builds some thick skin those
And
times, though. It
it
builds some
was,
resilience.
and I ended up then having my 50th cap against England away. And I remember the phone calls I had of just people, like all the Exeter boys, like some Baxter, Ali Heath, all of them were
Awesome.
just meshing like absolutely buzzing for me, knowing what I'd obviously gone through Exeter with injuries. And, I had some great times at Exeter with the finals and stuff as well. But yeah, that meant more coming back there. And I think probably actually getting first selected for Wales, weirdly. Yeah.
I love it. And right, next chapter, Cuthie. We are post career now. I've been loving what you're doing on socials. I think it's really cool. First of all, talk us through what it was like when you actually finally made that decision to hang up the boots. Was it a natural decision? Was it easy? Has there been any fallout since then? What's the initial thought?
Weirdly, I actually haven't announced a retirement yet.
Oh shit!
I finished with the Ospreys last year, and I was hoping to sign somewhere else, but I had quite a big injury to my last game for the Ospreys. But I was like, right, I'm going to take 6 months off. So I took 6 months off.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I
Sabbatical.
guess so. I had quite a lot of my mates' weddings and so forth. I was like, right, I want to, have this a period of time where I can just sort of reflect and just decide. And I'll be honest, I've sort of thrown myself into a bit of media, a few podcasts and my other business on the side, and I've just not gone back. So I ideally probably need to say that I'm retired. But I think in my mind,
We're not announcing it on this
no,
podcast. You're doing an
I'll
official
do an official
announcement all
announcement
across
somewhere.
your BBC
Oh, I don't know.
Wales.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll probably be out somewhere. But yeah, I don't think. I think I'm definitely done playing wise, and I've actually really enjoyed what I've been doing the last year. Not, I've been so used to doing, the rugby regime. What is it? In train, weights, train. The same, being told exactly what to do, when to do.
Spoon
Yeah,
fed.
everything's been scheduled, isn't it, for you? And then since I finished, it's like, wow, I can do my own schedule here. I can go to coffee 9. I got a meeting at 10.
I can
I
go on
could go on
holiday.
holiday. I actually can book a year in advance now. Just little things, isn't it? That as a rugby player, I could never book a holiday unless it was like 5 days before, because I wouldn't know if I was maybe injured on the weekend. Then you'd have to be in training for rehab or anything like that. So I've loved it, and I've actually really enjoyed the media more than I thought I would. And I love doing
Talk us through it,
podcasts.
Kathy. Talk us about everything that you're doing now, because obviously I follow you
Yeah.
guys, but I want to know everything that's on your plate, everything that you're focused on, media wise, sports wise, business wise.
We do a show called The Warm Up on BBC Wales every Thursday. So we talk about just, I guess, past stories and obviously what's coming up on the weekend with quite a few of my ex-players. With them, I do the Scrum 5 podcast, which is every Monday. So we just reflect everything on the weekend rugby-wise. I have my own podcast called Sport in Wales, where we talk quite a little bit about rugby and I guess politics that's happening in Wales. It's been a tough year, I'll be honest, in around that. And we don't just do rugby, we do football, we do everything sport in Wales. Obviously Wales football are now qualified for Euros, so we do quite a bit of that. A lot of good boxers. Joey Cadena, obviously a good mate of mine. So we cover all sorts of sports, which is really cool because that's I guess my main business that I have with a guy called Gareth Anscombe, who used to play for Wales. He's obviously playing in Bayonne now. So what we are pretty much is a advertising and marketing company. So we have a podcast, we run a magazine, which is pretty cool. So we obviously have a wide range of I guess sponsors and companies in the magazine, and we get some really good articles from the rugby lads. We want to feel like we're the guys to go and speak to, about trying to promote people, I guess, in sport. Because obviously you can get certain, I guess, press in around Wales or even in England as well. That it's quite negative, isn't it? And people aren't willing then to talk to them. So we want to be probably one of the biggest outlets in Wales, in the next year or so. So that's going quite
Awesome.
cool. And obviously I do quite a lot with Premier Sport, which they cover all the URC games, which is a league with Ireland, Irish teams, Scottish, Welsh, Italian, and South African. which is a wild league, but
It's one of the
yeah,
wildest leagues, right?
it's a very odd league in terms of it used to be just a bog standard, Irish, English, Irish, Welsh, Scottish, and then they chuck the Italians in. So there's 2 Italian teams, and then there's obviously you got the 4 South African teams. So there's a lot of travel in around. So yeah, I do quite a bit with that, obviously with BBC Sport as well. So yeah, it's I'm absolutely flat out, mate. Really, that keeps it busy, especially with Welsh rugby the way it is at the moment. There's never a dull moment.
Lots to
Yeah,
talk
lots to
about.
talk about.
Lots to talk
I think
about.
this is probably one of the hardest years really to go straight into it. And yeah, managed to get out unscathed. And I guess we'll just see further down the line how much more involved I'm with that, or how much more I push in with sport in really. So yeah, it's cool. Loving it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think that the route you've gone down is so cool. Like, you kind of see it, right? When players, I know you haven't announced your retirement or anything, but when players leave the game or their sport, they try and stay in it in some form, whether that's like coaching or commentating, or they go completely separate, and they're like, no, new career, separate career. But I think what you're doing, and obviously I follow you guys on socials and stuff, and I think it's really cool. It's really good insights. And what I love about it is that you can tell a lot of the stuff you do on your podcast is very like conversational stuff.
Yeah.
It's not, this is what happened this weekend. It's like you're giving proper insights with your friends who are also ex-players and some current players as well. And I think that's the way to go. I think that's the way to do it, and it's inevitably gonna grow and grow and grow. You said you were heading to Australia, mate. Is that to cover the Lions, or I assume that's Lions
Yeah,
related?
so I am working with TalkSport for this whole Lions tour, which has been quite cool. Love working with them. Absolutely, they've been unbelievable. So I'm doing the first test on Saturday in the studio in London, which is quite cool. And then I'm flying out Saturday night to do the test games out there. But I'm also out there to do a bit with the British and Irish Lions Rugby Legends. So there's two
Awesome.
games on the Thursday 22nd and the Thursday 29th before the second and third test. So there's a load
Are
of
you
us.
playing or you're doing
No,
content?
there's actually a game. There's 2 games. So there's a good squad going. But it's worked in quite well with work and events, and obviously with Talk Sports. Obviously myself played. You got likes of Dan Bigger, Lee Halfpenny, Andy Powell, Shane Williams on the Welsh side. And you got like Sean Lamont, Shane Byrne, quite a few other Irish lads. So yeah, we're playing the Classic Wallabies. It's actually on telly. I think it's on TV as well. So it's either on Sand Sports or Sky Sports, YouTube. So yeah, it's been really well. I guess really well, like sort of backed, and yeah, it should be great fun. Catch up with a lot of old lads. A lot of the boys in the Classic Wallabies I actually played against in 2013. So that'll be it's going to be a really
Awesome.
good catch up. And we're obviously, I think Looseheads is one of the main charities as well, so that would be a lot around them as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be absolutely epic, I think.
That's going to be a hell of a trip, man. And then so on the like back to the media and content side, um, what's the goal then? What's the goal for the next year, 5 years? What's your long term plan for what you're currently doing now? What's the
Well,
trajectory?
like I spoke about earlier about in terms of we've got the magazine, but I think we want to go into a bit more of an outlet. So for us to grow, we obviously have to have content every day in terms of editorial. We've got 3 editors at the moment. I think we need more. So to cover more, to try and probably pump out more, I guess, we want to get more out of the lads, especially in around all sports people in Wales, more than what it is at the moment. And a lot of what we do is quite positive. So that would be quite an area where we go. The magazine's only going to grow, podcasts as well. I think we need to, we can grow that in terms of maybe, hopefully, Gareth is still playing, so it's quite tough. It would be really good if he could
Mm.
jump on more. But obviously, once he starts finishing rugby, he's going to integrate himself back in. And I enjoy the pods. We only do 2 a month, which is quite cool. So we can really like sort of prepare and try and get guests. But you know what it's like trying to get guests, say, right, can you come on this time? And it can get
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
tricky,
it's
isn't it? And
savage.
especially players that are playing. I find that are quite not scared to say anything, but they're not as open, I guess, as players that are, I guess,
More
yes,
trained.
or finished. Um, on side of that, and then the media wise, I guess it's just probably just getting more versed in that, and just working with the companies. I think Premier Sport have the rights to every single URC game now for next year. So BBC Wales have lost out a little bit. So yeah, it's just navigating that really. Yeah,
Awesome.
but mate, it's going to keep me busy either way, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that's super, super exciting for you. It's one of those things that you can only see it going up, and the you mentioned there a couple times the positive nature of the magazine and the media that you
Yes.
cover. Has that come from your negative experience on the back end of some of the media and
Yes.
stuff throughout your rugby
Yeah.
career?
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
was that the
Yeah, a little bit.
inspiration?
Yeah, we still have a fitness app as well alongside it, but the media wise, so there's a local Wales. There's a thing called Wales Online, which is like the main, I guess, outlet in Wales at the moment, and they used to do these player ratings after games, and the first thing that lads would do after a game would go and look and what they got rated on it, and I hated it, absolutely hated it, because it was there was a guy who was never in and around the environment, and he's just going off what he's seeing, and I hated that, and I didn't want to do or go into anything like media wise with sporting and do the same. And I remember one time we had a new editor came in, and he did the same, and I literally saw it, and I rang him straight away and said, "Take that down now. Don't want anything like that, because I want the boys to feel like easy talking to myself or any of the editors
Yeah,
about anything, and that's where you get the real good editorial content in the magazine or online, and you get the boys opening up a bit more or more willing to come on the podcasts, and then you get the regions who are more intrigued then to, right, let's push a game, so I'll send you one of the lads. It can really spiral then into something really good, because you have that relationship then. But if you out there, slagging them, or because it's never about slagging, in my eyes, in the media. It's about probably just criticising, not the players, but the people above them, in terms of putting them in the right place, the right direction. Because players are always going to make mistakes, isn't it? Rugby is a game of mistakes, and whoever makes least wins. That's as simple as that, isn't it? So to bag someone out about making mistakes in games, I think is absolutely uncalled for. So yeah, that's definitely had an effect on me, I think, definitely.
yeah. I think it's something that's really cool that's come out of your experience. Um, Cuthie, how would you, from your rugby career and now your post-rugby career, how would you like to be remembered when all is said and done?
I don't know. I think when you get asked that question, you can answer it in like quite a selfish way, can't you? In terms, obviously, of my playing career, but I think it's just probably someone that, when I finished rugby, that one of the lads could literally just call me at any time, have a beer. A guy that would be great crack off the field. It was obviously, you want to be known for your rugby, don't you? Sometimes that takes care of itself, doesn't it? In terms of people have memories, and I was fortunate enough. I've been in some memorable games in Wales, whether we beat in England, Lions, Grand Slam, and I've been very fortunate in that. But I think I'd rather be remembered as a good bloke off the field, uh, someone that worked hard when he was in the environment, and offered something in that, wherever I was, at Cardiff, Exeter, Ospreys, or Wales. Yes, probably along those lines, really, mate. I think.
Love that. As you know, the podcast is called Abnormal. I like to ask the guests the same question at the end of every episode. It's for abnormal. It's for the podcast. Abnormal. It's for normal people that want to do abnormal things. So, Alex Cuthbert, what's the one piece of advice you would give to anyone out there looking to do something abnormal in their lives?
Oh. I think my advice would be, like, don't think about it too much. Think, in terms of, if you're thinking it, do it.
Just
Just,
jump
I
in.
think, yeah, I think it's when, if you have that instinct in your mind, in terms of, oh, maybe I do that, just do it. Don't, because if you start, I think that's when you can, think that, it's when you start thinking about it too much, really. That was when I felt like, I was in my, when I felt I was at my best, I'd do anything, I'd just do it. no, I didn't think about it too much. Didn't think about the consequences. But it can be terrible advice, really, if you've got people to provide. It was different when I didn't have kids.
Yeah, I don't know though. I like the route you're going down, because it's a feeling, isn't it? What's your first instinct? If your first instinct is to do something and go for it, just like when you're on the field, it's like, well, you're probably playing your best when you're going off
Yeah,
instincts. And
I think follow your instinct.
if something feels good in life, if something feels good and you want to go down that path, then jump in with both feet.
I think whatever makes you happy in terms of where you feel comfortable. I think sometimes feeling uncomfortable is not a bad thing, but sometimes we don't do what makes us happy half the time, do we? I think we try and please people around us more rather than ourselves. So it's probably been a bit more selfish maybe as well.
Well, Cuthie, thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate that you're very busy with family, business, media, booking suitcases, booking flights, the painters coming in. Mate, really appreciate it. Honestly, I love what you're doing. I think it's such a cool story, obviously as a player anyway, but also what you're doing now with the media stuff, and can't wait to see where it goes, man.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, man. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Abnormal. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and give us a 5-star review in whatever podcast platform you are listening or watching on right now, as it goes a long way to help growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.